The ID card bounced off the polished granite floor with a sharp sound that echoed throughout the bustling lobby of Regal Crest Bank in London's Canary Wharf. Samantha Mitchell, senior manager of the institution, had literally tossed the ID card of a 60-year-old white woman onto the floor as if it were trash. "I'm sorry, but documents like these don't inspire confidence," Samantha said with a dismissive smile, adjusting the silk scarf at her neck as she watched the woman bend down to pick up her ID. "Perhaps you'd be better off looking for a bank more suited to your profile." Grace Albright remained crouched for a few seconds, holding the document with steady hands that did not tremble even for an instant. At 60, she had the posture of someone who had weathered storms far worse than the arrogance of a young executive. When she stood up, her eyes met Samantha's with a disturbing serenity. The scene had caught the attention of other customers in the bank. A distinguished gentleman whispered something to his wife, discreetly pointing in Grace's direction. Two analysts in crisp suits stopped talking to watch the awkwardness. The silence in the room was so thick that even the faint hum of the air conditioning seemed amplified. "I understand perfectly," replied Grace, her calm voice contrasting with the explicit contempt she had just suffered. "I just came to make a simple transaction, but I realize that perhaps this is not the right time." Samantha rolled her eyes and turned to David, her assistant, who had watched the whole scene with obvious discomfort. "It's always like this with these kinds of people," she muttered, loud enough to be heard. "They think they can just walk in here without understanding how things work." Grace Albright was not just any woman. Although her modest appearance suggested otherwise, there was something in her gaze, a calmness that only exists in those who carry powerful secrets and know exactly when to reveal them. Her silver hair was neatly tied back, her work-worn hands told stories of decades of dedication, and her upright posture revealed an unshakable dignity. What was most intriguing about Grace's reaction was her complete lack of surprise. It was as if she had expected exactly this kind of treatment, as if she already had a plan for dealing with situations like this. "May I ask what brought you here?" asked David, trying to ease the tension created by his boss. His voice trembled slightly, as if he sensed that something was not right about the situation. "I wanted to open a business account," Grace replied simply. "My son mentioned that you offer specialized services for large corporations." Samantha let out a sarcastic laugh. "Large corporations, really?" She looked Grace up and down once more. "Listen, Miss Albright, is that it? Perhaps you don't understand the profile of our clients. We're talking about multi-million-pound contracts, international partnerships, complex investments." What Samantha didn't know was that Grace hadn't arrived there by chance. Over the past 3 months, her son had repeatedly mentioned the name of that bank during family gatherings. "We're closing a huge partnership with Regal Crest Bank, Mom. £3.5 billion. It's the biggest contract in our company's history." While Samantha continued her condescending speech about profile suitability and institutional standards, Grace discreetly observed the bank's comings and goings. Well-dressed clients were greeted with warm smiles and artisanal coffee. Executives in bespoke suits were escorted directly to private offices. The difference in treatment was not subtle, it was glaring and systematic. "I understand your position," Grace said gently, interrupting Samantha's monologue. "Indeed, large corporations require partners who are up to the task." Something in Grace's tone made Samantha pause for a moment. There was a certainty in that sentence that didn't match the humiliation she had just suffered, but the manager quickly dismissed any concerns. Standing in the revolving door, Grace did something Samantha would never have expected. Instead of walking out defeated and humiliated, she took out her mobile phone and typed a quick message. "Daniel, I need to talk to you about Regal Crest." It's urgent. The reply came within seconds. Is there a problem, Mom? I'm just reviewing the final contracts with them. Grace typed again. Let's just say I had an interesting experience with customer service. Can we talk tonight? Sure, Mom. Are you okay? Grace glanced one last time at Samantha, who was now serving a dark-haired customer in a navy suit with almost obsequious reverence. A discreet smile formed at the corner of her mouth. Some people are about to discover that underestimating people based on their ID cards can cost them much more than they imagine. As she walked down the sunny pavement, Grace showed neither anger nor sadness, just the tranquility of someone who had just witnessed exactly what she expected to witness, as if that humiliation were merely confirmation of a suspicion she had harbored for months. If this story of prejudice disguised as professionalism touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to find out how a simple gesture of contempt would turn into the most spectacular fall the corporate world has ever witnessed. Samantha Mitchell couldn't resist the temptation to turn Grace's humiliation into entertainment for her colleagues during lunch at the executive restaurant on the 20th floor. She recounted the story for the third time, gesturing theatrically as she imitated the supposedly humble voice of the old woman. You should have seen the look on her face when I threw the document on the floor, Samantha laughed, cutting into her grilled sea bass. She tried to keep her dignity, but we all know how it is. These people always think they can walk into anywhere. David, her assistant, stirred his salad uncomfortably. Samantha, maybe she really did have a company? You didn't even check. David, honey, Samantha interrupted condescendingly. I've been in this business for 8 years. I know a real client when I see one. That woman didn't even have a premium credit card. The other managers laughed, but something in Samantha's overly loud tone suggested that she was trying to convince herself as much as the others. There was something about the woman's calm demeanor that bothered her more than she cared to admit. Besides, Samantha continued, sipping her Sauvignon Blanc, it was a favor for her. Imagine how embarrassing it would have been if she had tried to open an account and found out she didn't even have the minimum deposit. I saved everyone time. What Samantha didn't know was that at that very moment, Grace was sitting in her son's sleek, minimalist kitchen in St. John's Wood, leafing through contracts that would make the arrogant manager swallow every contemptuous word she had uttered. "Mom, you look worried," Daniel Albright observed, pouring fresh coffee into a cup that cost more than Samantha's monthly salary. "What happened at Regal Crest?" Grace sighed, choosing her words carefully. Let's just say I had an enlightening experience about how they treat certain people. What do you mean? The manager, Samantha Mitchell, from what I saw on her badge, wasn't exactly welcoming. In fact, she was quite clear about the type of client she considered suitable for the bank. Daniel frowned. Samantha Mitchell? He knew that name from the internal reports he had received during the negotiations. A senior manager who would be responsible for a significant part of the implementation of the partnership that was about to revolutionize both companies. Mom, do you want to tell me exactly what happened? Grace told him everything, from the moment she walked into the bank to the moment her ID card bounced off the cold granite floor. As she spoke, she saw her son's expression gradually change from concern to something much more dangerous. Daniel was known in the corporate world for his calculating coldness when someone disrespected his family. She threw your ID on the floor? Daniel's voice was strangely calm, the kind of calm that precedes devastating storms. Like it was trash, son. But don't worry, I've been through worse. And he had. Grace Albright had built her first company from the rubble of the discrimination she had suffered in the 1980s, when no bank would finance her dream of an innovative tech startup. She sold everything she had, worked 18 hours a day, coding and building prototypes in her garage until she could hire her first employees. At 60, she had sold that company for a fortune that few knew about. Her money was quietly invested in global venture capital funds spread across 5 countries, but her modest appearance had never revealed the 9-digit fortune she had accumulated through decades of relentless work. "You know, son, it was interesting to observe how the bank works, especially considering the partnership you are entering into with them." Daniel nodded slowly, his eyes taking on that dangerous gleam Grace had known since he was a child. £3.5 billion, Mom. It's the biggest contract in our company's history. I wonder how they would react if they knew that the inappropriate old woman they humiliated today is the mother of the CEO who is about to make them the most profitable bank in the region. While Samantha dined at an expensive Mayfair restaurant that evening, celebrating another day of maintaining the standards of Regal Crest, she posted on LinkedIn about the importance of maintaining strict quality criteria in customer service. Her colleagues' comments praised her dedication to excellence. What she didn't know was that Grace was on a video call with her son's 3 senior partners, being introduced as an informal advisor and strategic mentor. "I want you to meet my mother," Daniel said on the screen. "Grace Albright, my informal advisor and the wisest person I know." Grace waved at the camera, her expression serene, masking the plans that were beginning to form in her experienced mind. She had spent decades building empires from nothing. Taking down the career of an arrogant manager would be almost recreational. "Nice to meet you," Grace said calmly. "Daniel told me about the partnership with Regal Crest. How interesting." During the ensuing conversation, Grace asked seemingly innocent questions about timelines, key contacts at the bank, and contract cancellation procedures. Information any concerned parent would ask for. Information an experienced strategist would file away carefully for future use. Out of curiosity, Grace asked casually, "What is the bank's policy on discrimination? I imagine a company of our size requires partners with solid values." The partners looked at each other. "That's an excellent question, Mrs. Albright. We'll include that in the final review of the contracts." While Samantha slept peacefully in her penthouse, convinced that she had kept the undesirables away once again, Grace stayed up late, reviewing every detail of the billion-pound partnership her son was about to sign. For a moment, when she bowed her head in the face of insults that morning, everyone at the bank thought they had broken her spirit. But those who know true strength know that it grows precisely in silence, fueled by injustice, and is about to manifest itself in ways that will turn humiliation into revenge and arrogance into eternal regret. Twist 1. The Unseen Observer. 3 days after the humiliation at the bank, Grace woke up before dawn and did something she hadn't done in years. She put on her only Chanel suit, which had been hanging in her closet since she sold her first company. This was no time to appear modest. It was time to remember who she really was. "Mom, are you sure about this?" asked Daniel, reviewing the documents scattered across the conference room table for the 10th time. "Once we cancel, there's no turning back. £3.5 billion, Mom. That's almost half the company's annual revenue." Grace adjusted her jacket cuffs and smiled. "Son, I've learned one thing. Building companies. Money can be recovered. Dignity, once lost, takes decades to regain." The table was covered with contracts, termination clauses, and financial reports. Daniel had spent the night with his legal team mapping out every comma that would allow the partnership to be canceled without significant legal penalties. Clause 17 allows for unilateral termination in the event of discriminatory practices by the financial institution, explained Dr. Evelyn Reed, a senior lawyer with the firm for 15 years. We'll need concrete evidence. Leave that to me, Grace said calmly, sliding a folder across the table. Inside was something that made even the experienced lawyer gulp. Printouts of Samantha Mitchell's LinkedIn activity from the past 2 years, subtly prejudiced posts about quality standards and cultural fit, comments on articles about corporate diversity that revealed her discriminatory mindset, likes on questionable content. "My God," murmured Dr. Reed. "How did you get this?" "When you're 60 years old and have been building companies since you were 20, you learn that information is power," Grace replied. "Samantha Mitchell isn't just arrogant, she's careless." While the Albright family planned meticulously, Samantha Mitchell enjoyed what she believed to be another victorious week. She had posted on LinkedIn about an excellent quarter of growth and received dozens of compliments from colleagues. Her latest achievement had been rejecting 3 unsuitable candidates for corporate accounts. "Some people don't understand that we maintain high standards here," she commented to David during the coffee break. "It's a matter of preserving the bank's reputation." David had become increasingly uncomfortable with his boss's comments, especially after the incident with Grace. "Samantha, have you ever thought that maybe we're being too selective?" "David, honey, you're still new to this business. Over time, you develop an instinct for recognizing who really belongs here." What Samantha didn't know was that at that very moment, Grace was being welcomed as a VIP at her son's company headquarters, Albright Innovations. The receptionist greeted her as Mrs. Albright, strategic advisor, and employees stopped discreetly to greet her in the hallways. "Mom, meet Robert Thompson, our chief financial officer," said Daniel, guiding Grace to a meeting room with a panoramic view of the London skyline. Robert extended his hand with the respect reserved for major investors. "Mrs. Albright, it's an honor to finally meet you. Daniel always talks about your business acumen." During the meeting that followed, Grace demonstrated why she had built and sold companies for decades. Her questions were precise, her analysis was surgical, and her suggestions revealed a sharp, strategic mind. "Robert, what would be the financial impact if we had to cancel the partnership with Regal Crest?" Grace asked casually. "It would be significant, but not catastrophic," Robert replied after consulting his reports. "We have other banking options that have expressed interest in similar partnerships. Global Trust Bank, for example, has offered even better terms." Daniel and Grace exchanged glances. Everything was falling into place. "There's something else you should know," Grace said, her voice taking on a more serious tone. "I've done some research on Samantha Mitchell. This woman isn't just occasionally prejudiced, it's systematic." She slid over printouts of internal emails leaked by a disgruntled former Regal Crest employee. Messages in which Samantha referred to black clients as cultural risks and questioned the statistical reliability of Asian entrepreneurs. "This is unbelievable," Robert whispered. "If this leaks to the public—" "It won't leak," Grace interrupted, "because we're going to use it much more intelligently." Meanwhile, Samantha was having lunch at her favorite Knightsbridge restaurant, posting photos of her gourmet meal on Instagram with the hashtag Executive Life. In the comments, colleagues praised her good taste and enviable lifestyle. She had no idea that every post, every comment, every public display of arrogance was being carefully archived by Grace's team. "Mom, are you sure you want to go through with this?" asked Daniel, seeing the relentless determination in the eyes of the woman who had taught him that dignity is not negotiable. "Son, that woman humiliated me because she thought I was insignificant. Tomorrow, she'll find out that some people are much more important than they appear to be." That night, while Samantha slept peacefully, dreaming of her next promotion, Grace remained awake, finalizing what would be the most spectacular downfall the London banking sector had ever witnessed. The gun was loaded, the target was in her sights, and Samantha Mitchell had no idea that she had chosen the wrong opponent to underestimate. For a moment, when she threw that ID card on the floor, Samantha thought she was demonstrating her power. But those who know true power know that it doesn't need to be flaunted. It simply acts at the right moment, devastatingly and irreversibly. Twist 2. The Unexpected Ally. The next morning, Grace woke up at 5 a.m. and put on her Chanel suit again. Today, it wouldn't just be her who was vindicated. It would be the woman who would teach Samantha Mitchell that underestimating people can cost £3.5 billion. "Daniel, are you absolutely sure you want to do this?" asked Dr. Reed for the 10th time, reviewing the termination documents. "Once signed, there's no turning back." "Doctor, my mother taught me that dignity is priceless, and £3.5 billion won't buy the respect they denied her." Meanwhile, Samantha arrived at Regal Crest, beaming. She had received a message from management informing her of an urgent meeting with strategic partners scheduled for 10 a.m. In her arrogant mind, it could only mean one thing. Her promotion had finally arrived. "David, have my desk polished and prepare the special coffee," Samantha ordered, adjusting the diamond tie pin she reserved for important occasions. "Today is the day my career takes off." At 9:45 a.m., Samantha was in her office, organizing the last details when David appeared at the door, his face visibly pale. "Samantha, there's a problem. The Albright family is here for the meeting." "Albright?" Samantha frowned. "I don't know any Albrights important enough for strategic meetings. It's the woman from yesterday, the one you—" David swallowed hard. "She's with a man who introduced himself as the CEO of Albright Innovations." Samantha's blood instantly turned to ice. Albright Innovations? The £3.5 billion company? The one that would make her career? The one whose contract was being finalized that week? "Impossible," Samantha muttered, but her hands were already shaking as she searched for information on the computer. Grace Albright. Grace Albright. The search returned a result that made Samantha almost faint. Grace Albright, 60 years old, retired tech pioneer, mother of Albright Innovations CEO Daniel Albright, estimated net worth £120 million. "No, no, no," Samantha repeated like a mantra as she hurried through the corridors toward the main meeting room. When she opened the door, the scene she found confirmed her worst nightmare. Grace was sitting calmly at the main table, wearing the same impeccable suit that contrasted brutally with the simple clothes she had worn the day before. At her side was an elegant man in his 30s, unmistakably powerful and professional. "Ms. Mitchell," Daniel Albright said in an icy voice, "I believe you already met my mother, Grace Albright." Samantha tried to force a smile, but her legs were shaking visibly. "Mrs. Albright, there was a misunderstanding yesterday. I didn't know that you were important," Grace interrupted calmly. "Interesting. I thought Regal Crest treated all clients with respect, regardless of appearance." The regional director, Mr. Alistair Finch, arrived running, clearly upset. "Miss Albright, Mr. Albright, I apologize for any inconvenience. Samantha, would you please step outside?" "Actually," Daniel said, opening an elegant leather brief, "we would like Ms. Mitchell to stay. After all, she was the one who helped us make a very important decision." Samantha felt sweat trickle down her back. "What decision?" Grace smiled serenely. The decision to cancel our £3.5 billion partnership with Regal Crest. The silence in the room was deafening. Alistair Finch looked as if he had been punched in the stomach. "Daniel, Miss Albright, we can work this out. Samantha will be disciplined, I promise you." "Mr. Finch," Grace spoke with the authority of someone who had built empires, "when your company throws a client's identity on the floor like trash, you're not just disrespecting a person, you're revealing your corporate culture." Samantha desperately tried to defend herself. "Mrs. Albright, I was protecting the bank from possible fraud. It's standard procedure." "Standard procedure?" Daniel slid a series of printouts across the table. "These are screenshots of your LinkedIn from the last 2 years, Ms. Mitchell. Posts about maintaining proper standards and filtering out inappropriate clientele. It seems your bias wasn't an isolated accident." The evidence was devastating. Subtly racist comments, likes on discriminatory content, a complete digital history of systematic prejudice. That was taken out of context," Samantha stammered. "Just like it was taken out of context when you threw my mother's ID on the floor." Daniel's voice was dangerously calm. Alistair Finch tried to salvage what he could. "Miss Albright, we can fire Samantha immediately. The bank does not condone this behavior." "It's too late, Mr. Finch." Grace stood up, her presence dominating the room. "Yesterday, when you humiliated me, I was just a customer. Today, I am the mother of the CEO you just lost." Samantha collapsed into her chair, reality finally hitting her. £3.5 billion. Her career, her reputation, all destroyed by a few seconds of arrogance. "Please," she whispered, "I didn't know. I can change. I can learn." "Yesterday, you knew exactly who I was," Grace replied with unshakable dignity. "A human being who deserved basic respect. That was all you needed to know." As mother and son prepared to leave, Grace paused at the door and turned to Samantha one last time. "Do you know what the difference is between us, Samantha? You judged me by my appearance. I judged you by your character, and I found that of the two of us, only one had anything of value to offer." The doors to the room closed, leaving Samantha alone with the wreckage of her career. Outside, employees whispered in the hallways. The news of the cancellation of the largest partnership in the bank's history was already spreading like wildfire. At that moment, Samantha realized that some people carry a silent power that only reveals itself when underestimated by those who confuse arrogance with intelligence, and true strength does not need to announce itself. It simply acts when necessary, in a devastating and irreversible way. Twist 3. The Ripple Effect. 2 weeks after the meeting that would change everything, Samantha Mitchell cleaned her desk for the last time. Her dismissal had been immediate and without negotiation. 8 years of her career at Regal Crest now boiled down to a cardboard box and contemptuous looks from her former colleagues. "Did you really think you could treat clients like that and get away with it?" David, now promoted to her former position, watched with a mixture of pity and poetic justice. Grace Albright was literally the mother of the biggest client in the bank's history. What made it worse for Samantha was discovering that her humiliation had gone viral internally. Employees shared the story in WhatsApp groups, always ending with the same phrase, "Never judge a book by its cover." Meanwhile, Grace and Daniel signed an even bigger partnership with Global Trust Bank. £3.8 billion, £300 million more than Regal Crest's original offer. The director of Global Trust, impressed by the Albright family's history of integrity, had offered preferential terms. "Mrs. Albright," said Eleanor Vance, president of Global Trust Bank, It is an honor to work with a family that values dignity above profit. That is rare in the corporate world." Grace smiled serenely. "Eleanor, I've learned that true partners are those who respect you at the first handshake, not after learning about your net worth." News of the cancellation of the multi-billion-pound partnership spread through the financial sector like wildfire. Samantha discovered in the worst possible way that her reputation had been destroyed, not only at Regal Crest, but throughout the London market. 3 months later, she was still unemployed. Every interview ended the same way. "Oh, you're the Samantha who lost the £3.5 billion contract. Thanks, but we'll pass." One day, while drinking coffee alone in a cheap cafe in East London, Samantha saw Grace enter the establishment. The woman who had humiliated her was wearing simple clothes again, but now Samantha knew exactly who was standing before her. Grace ordered her coffee, paid politely, and as she passed Samantha's table, she paused briefly. "Good morning, Samantha. How's the job search going?" Samantha swallowed hard. "Mrs. Albright, I'd like to apologize. I didn't know—" "Samantha," Grace interrupted gently, "you knew exactly what you needed to know, that I was a human being who deserved basic respect. Everything else was irrelevant. But I can change, I can learn." Grace nodded. "I sincerely hope you can, because the next person you judge by their appearance may have a son even more powerful than mine." With that, Grace calmly walked out, leaving Samantha alone with a bitter reality. Some lessons come too late to save a career destroyed by one's own hands. 6 months later, Albright Innovations had grown 40%, driven by its partnership with Global Trust Bank. Grace, officially hired as a strategic consultant for her son's company, used her office to mentor young entrepreneurs facing discrimination in the market. "Mom, you turned humiliation into growth for hundreds of people," said Daniel, watching Grace mentor a young black entrepreneur who had been rejected by 3 banks. "Son, I've discovered that the best revenge isn't destroying those who hurt you. It's building something so great that they realize how small they were." Regal Crest never fully recovered from the loss. The story became a case study in business schools about how prejudice can cost billions. Samantha became a symbol of everything that is wrong with discriminatory customer service. David, now a regional manager, implemented a diversity and inclusion program that became a model for other banks. On the wall of his office, he kept a framed quote, "Respect first, ask questions later." A year later, Grace was invited to speak at the National Banking Convention on the importance of universal respect in customer service. When she took the stage, she spotted Samantha in the audience, now working as an insurance salesperson, a shadow of the arrogant executive she once was. "Ladies and gentlemen," Grace began her speech, "today I'm going to tell you how 5 seconds of disrespect cost a financial institution £3.5 billion. Samantha hung her head, knowing that her story would be told once again, but this time as an example of what never to do. Grace ended her speech with a reflection that echoed throughout the convention. The difference between dignified treatment and discrimination is not in the wealth of the person standing in front of you. It's in the character of the person serving them. As she stepped off the stage to warm applause, Grace realized that she had turned her humiliation into a lesson that would change the way thousands of professionals would treat their customers from then on. That ID card thrown on the floor had not broken her dignity. It had revealed the moral fragility of those who believe that power is measured by the ability to humiliate others. Samantha tried to destroy Grace, but ended up destroying herself. Grace learned that true revenge is not to repay the damage suffered. It is to achieve the success that her enemies could never imagine. If this story of justice and transformation touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove that The best response to prejudice is success built with dignity and intelligence.